This episode contains material that may be triggering to some individuals. Please check the show notes for more information and be mindful of your own mental health and comfort levels. And help end the stigma surrounding so much of the motherhood and parenthood experience. Check out my Buy Me a Coffee page. For just a few bucks, you can treat me to a warm beverage, or you can join a monthly membership to help me keep creating the content you love. It's a win-win. Just head to buymeacoffee.com/Quiet Connection Podcast and check out our options. Let's fuel our mama mission together. Welcome to Quiet Connection, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma around postpartum mental health. I'm Chelsea. Today, I'm connecting with Heather, whose personal journey through fertility challenges, loss, and eventually motherhood has shaped her work as a fertility coach. Heather discusses her experiences with miscarriage, the emotional challenges of infertility, and the importance of nutrition and self-advocacy in reproductive health. Whether you're navigating a similar path or supporting someone who is, this conversation is one of resilience, hope, and strength found in community. Let's dive in. Hello. Today I'm here with Heather. Heather, how are you?
I am doing great.
I love that. It's Monday morning and Heather's doing great. That's what we all aspire to.
Definitely.
Yeah. I don't know what it's like where you're at, but here it is rainy and gross. And so I'm going to take a little bit of that energy that you've got and I'm going to steal a little bit for myself.
Well, it's always like a good day too when it's St. Patrick's Day, right? You can't help but smile.
That's true. I keep forgetting that it's St. Patrick's Day today. We're not like Irish. So I don't know, but we'll have to do something silly today. I'll have to remember for my kids. Some sort of leprechaun something.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I like to start all of my episodes with asking my guests to tell us a little bit about yourself, because I could list off everything I know, but that would be boring. So just sort of let us know who you are and who you were before your parenting journey.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a loaded question for sure. But my name is Heather Kish, and I am many things, but right now I am a mother of a 5-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 17-year-old, and also a fertility coach. And so have worn many hats over the years, but have been doing this now for a couple of years, and I finally found my passion. But as you know, it's difficult and challenging in many aspects to run a business with kids and online and just juggle all the ins and outs of motherhood and parenthood and life as we know it.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Who was Heather before all of this?
So Heather, before all this, this is like my my second time completely changing careers. Like the trajectory of where I got to this point is really insane. But before I got into coaching, I worked in IT security.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And it's obviously a complete shift. Computers were always an interest to me growing up, and so was the law. And so I struggled early on in my college days because I had to work to pay for school, and law school just seemed out of reach. So I was like, okay, how can I still kind of focus on the law, but also maybe integrate computers? So I got into digital forensics and IT security and did that for 10 years. And prior to that, that was my first jump. I worked in retail for like 22 years, 22 Christmases I gave up. And yeah, so I've just kind of ping-ponged all over the place, but I finally found my true passion, and that is with nutrition and health and wellness. And my own personal journey was kind of the catalyst that brought me to this. It just kept speaking to me and speaking to me, months and then subsequently years after I went through it. And I was like, something just keeps burning, and I need to share this. I need to share my story. I want to help other women so they don't have to go through what I had to go through, and I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to do it. And so here I am now 2 years in, and have helped many women and continue to do so, and hoping that, sharing my story with you will reach even more people, more women that are on this similar journey.
Yeah. And that is a very common theme that I'm getting from a lot of my guests, is that obviously we're all here because our parenting journey didn't quite go the way that we anticipated it going,
Mm-hmm.
but it brought about this calling in us. And I think I've said this in every episode. I'm not a fan of the term silver linings,
Mm-hmm.
but I do acknowledge that the trials that we have gone through as mothers and as
Mm-hmm.
parents have kind of shifted our priorities and shifted what we want to do with our lives. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I think I kind of, well, I don't think, I know, I've always been very interested in nutrition and just overall health and wellness. I was a child athlete and always was looking at ways to like level up. And so I had issues with dairy and lactose and allergies when I was in my early teens and going into my 20s. And I just felt like we get so much misinformation out there. I hate to use that word because it's so trendy right now, but it
I
is
know.
true. Like there's a lot of conflicting and misinformation when it comes to nutrition. And one of the things that I really hone in on in my program is nutrition, because what works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for another. So, we talk a lot about fertility diet in my space, and that's all and fine, but a fertility diet isn't necessarily going to be right for everybody. There's different nutrients that everybody needs to be feeling their best and for their body to be working optimally. That piece of it was definitely something I wanted to integrate into my program, was just nutrition in general for health and wellness, not just for boosting fertility. So that kind of leveled it up, because I started with my training based in nutrition, and then I focused and honed in even more on hormone health and reproductive issues, and that kind of rounded it out. So, but nutrition has always been like at my heart, even though I was working in retail and doing completely different, like the trajectory of my life has been so crazy, but working in retail, and then I got in HR management, and then I got into IT security. But all that time in the back in my personal life, I went gluten free. I stopped eating dairy. I was very cognizant of reading labels. And so I don't know, I just felt like after my journey, I was like, why am I doing something that I like but not love?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's also another reason that I was like, I changed careers once, I can do it again. Why not?
Why, you can do it as many times as you want to.
Yeah.
It sounds like this is what you're very passionate about. And sort of in that vein, like talking about nutrition and talking about how your journey led you here, like, let's get into that a little bit. Let's get into your personal fertility journey. A
Sure.
question that I like to ask, which seems so simple, but actually tells me a lot, is, were kids always part of your plan? Did you always picture yourself being a mother?
Yeah, and that's a very interesting question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I really was okay with yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Because working in retail, I'm sure you've known people, and maybe yourself even dabbled in it a little bit. It's very time consuming. Your schedule is never your schedule. I I started, when I was 15 working in retail, and then worked my way up into different levels of management, managing hundreds of people to 30 people to millions of dollars. And it just never seemed like a good time. Like we always, even my first wedding, we had to plan around the planning calendar because my husband also worked in retail. So it was like, okay, we can't do it in May because that's Mother's Day. Okay, we can't do it in June because that's Father's Day. Okay, we can't do it in July. It's home, whatever. And so it was like never really a good time. And then I think in the back of my head, because hindsight's always 2020, that wasn't the right partner. And then the second person that I was with, he had kids already. So they were like my bonus kids. And we had talked about kids, but we were also both in retail. So it was like, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, great, And then that relationship didn't work out. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm just not destined to be a mother. And I'm okay with that. Would I like to have kids? Sure, but it's okay if not. And then it wasn't until I met my current husband that things started to shift, not just from a perspective of that I felt like I might have found the right partner to, co-parent with, but also that the relationship that he had with his kids was so phenomenal. Like he was just such a great dad. And I didn't have a bad relationship with my dad, but my parents were divorced when I was really young, and he wasn't like emotionally available and as present as my husband is with his kids now. And so that kind of got things like brewing in my mind where that shift started. But I was still okay with just being a bonus mom if it happened. But what really threw it into question was in 2013, I was having really, really bad fibroids to the point that I was vomiting, getting migraines, having to call out sick. And this had been leading up to about 5 or 6 years before that. And I finally had to have surgery to get them out. So I saw an endocrinologist, and he was like, yeah, you have a 5-pound fibroid on the outside of your uterus. No wonder you're like a $110 and you're carrying around another 5 pounds, on your uterus. We got to get that out. So we had a myomectomy, and he found 2 other ones like golf ball size. And so we removed all of those out. And he said, if you do decide to have kids, you're probably going to have a C-section because of that scar and, all that. But rest assured, if you decide you want to do that, you will. And I was 37 at the time. And then because of that, which he did tell me, he was like, your cycles are going to be messed up because your body's going to try to readjust and heal from all of that. And they did. My periods were so much better. I mean, it wasn't hemorrhaging basically and bleeding through pads every 45 minutes, but they were all over the board. Like my cycles were just crazy. So tried IUD, hated that. Tried, low dose estrogen. That seemed to be okay, but I didn't want to be on any kind of prescription long term because I know, and now I know even more with my training, but all it does is suppress your cycles. So it doesn't really help regulate it, is the term that a lot of conventional medicine doctors do. Like it just kind of kept it going, but I knew that it wasn't for me. And so I did it for like 6 months and I was like, okay, I'm done. But I did have a caveat. I was like, so if I stop this, like what's the birth control option going to be? Like I was talking about that with the OBGYN. She was like, well, I think because of your age, you shouldn't have any issues with getting pregnant. Your cycles are still kind of irregular and you're older now, you're AMH levels are low. So I would say, at least a couple months. Well, of course, that was not the case. And like a month later, I got pregnant. So I stopped in December, got pregnant in January. But mind you, had no idea because my cycles were all over the board and irregular. And so I didn't think anything of it when it didn't come 4 weeks later.
Yeah.
Didn't know I was pregnant until I lost it at 8 weeks. So that began my infertility journey, was with that first miscarriage. And I wasn't really upset because I didn't know. And I kind of thought about it in my mind, but I was like, okay, that's, part of the process. I went through the fibroids, went through the myomectomy, and it is what it is. So I went about my business for like the next few months. And then 6 months later, I got pregnant again. And again, lost it at the 9th to 10th week mark. And so that time was a little bit harder, but I still think I was kind of like accepting of the fact that I was older now. I was going to be 40 and was like, kids are probably not in the cards for me. And I'm still okay with that because I have 2 beautiful bonus children. And again, about 8 months later, I got pregnant again and again lost it at that mark. And so we were like, do we want to see what's going on here? Do we want to look at this a little bit further? And so we had some dialogue and we were like, should we go back to the endocrinologist and see, like, is this a fertility issue or do we even want to explore having kids? So we began that long trek of, testing. So we started with seeing if I had any fibroids again, which I did not. Seeing if I had any issues with my uterus, I did not. Checking my AMH levels, checking genetic disorders. And this was all over the course of probably 4 to 6 months. And checked out my husband and looked at his motility and his genetic predisposition. And he was all fine. And so a lot of times conventional medicine doctors they rule out many of the things that I just mentioned, and then they don't want to just jump right to IVF or to IUI. They want you to try naturally, number one, because they don't want to pump you full of drugs. And then number two, it's obviously expensive. So we decided after everything and the losses, they were like, okay, well, you're in a different bracket than most of our clients. You can get pregnant, but you can't stay pregnant. So let's find out why. And they kind of had an idea, but they're like, let's just move to IUI since you had the 3rd miscarriage, and we'll go from there. And so we did, 2 months of stimulating drugs, and we're checking my follicles and all that good stuff. And I wasn't really reacting well to them in the sense that they weren't really stimulating because I'm 40 years old and there's nothing really to stimulate. There's not much left. So I was getting like 7, 9, maybe. And they're like, we need at least 5 good ones to like even make it worth it. Right. So we finally got to 9, I think, on that round, and we decided to go ahead and do the IUI. And we did, and we got pregnant right away. Like, I felt like we probably would, and we did. And then that was the 4th and final loss, right at the 10th week mark. And so going back to those like 4 times, that emotional toll, like in that getting up to that time, like I even remember when I got pregnant, they kicked me over to the OBGYN because they were like, okay, you got pregnant, you're fine, we did our job, so bye-bye. And I had developed such a relationship with them because this was over the course of about 1.5 years already. I was like, I really just want you to do an ultrasound in this 10th week so that I just know that everything is okay, And they're like, okay, we'll do it one more time. And so it was okay. And then like that next, like 2 days later, I lost it. And so I came back again. And it was just devastating. My husband was like, I just don't think we can do this again. It's so heavy. Like, he felt on his heart that it was a boy, and he had already like started, preparing mentally and thinking that he was going to have a third child. And it was hard. We had to take a break, just like reevaluate what we wanted to do. And the doctors told us, well, we think we pretty much isolated that your eggs, the quality of your eggs are just not there. So we can do IVF, but it's probably going to take a few cycles, and it's not going to be easy, It's just not. And so we were like, okay, let's evaluate. And so we took like a 6-month break from the drugs, the stimulating drugs, and just from being in the office because, as blood tests like every couple of days, and follicle counting and ultrasounds, and like you feel like a pincushion because you're literally getting poked and prodded all the time. And meanwhile, I am like petrified of needles, and I had to give myself shots. And
no.
I like had to get through that because I just had to do it. And so you find the emotional like strength to get through stuff like that. But we decided to do it again. And I think one of the biggest reasons we decided was our insurance. Okay. Now, this is something that a lot of people struggle with. A lot of my clients, like, they are forced to not continue because their insurance doesn't cover it, or they don't even have insurance, and it's astronomically expensive. So for whatever reason, we had crazy good insurance, and they were going to pay for 6 cycles of IVF.
Wow.
6. Yeah. Even the nurse was like, the billing, she was like, I don't know what insurance you have, but it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had to sit down. Like, I even told my husband, you need to sit down when you read this letter, because they sent us a letter saying, okay, you're approved for 6 cycles. And yeah, so we started the drugs again. And we also decided, they gave us this sheet where I call it the sheet of cocktails, because that's literally what it looks like. Because you could do, wash the sperm for stronger motility. You could scratch the surface of the egg to make sure that the sperm goes in. It's called ICSI. And then there's like the pre-genetic testing for chromosomal abnormalities. And so ultimately we landed on that cocktail of choice. But each of those cocktails cost money. So, and then depending on how many eggs you get, that costs money to freeze them. So, it was very confusing. And we were like, okay, just do the pre-genetic testing, because ultimately that's what all 3 doctors, they were a group of doctors, and they all 3 decided that the chromosomal abnormalities were most likely what was causing the miscarriages. Because I'm going to say this because some listeners may not be aware, but in the 9th to 10th week of development, all of the major organs are happening. And so our bodies have a way, when they know that something is not right, that's typically why women pass or miscarry in that time. Miscarriage happens like 30 to 35% of the time in most pregnancies, and it's usually because of that. There's something not developing quite right. So that was interesting to learn. And the one doctor was like, the odds are stacked against you, but if we can get one that's chromosomally normal, we know you can carry it. We already know you can, because you can get pregnant. So we just need to find a good egg. So we went through the one more round of drugs for another month, and it was in October that we did the retrieval. I got 5 eggs that time, and they all fertilized, but only 3 of them made it to what's called the blastocyst phase, which is 5 days after fertilization, to even be pre-genetically tested for the chromosomal abnormalities. They have to have replicated multiple times over the course of 5 days. So that happened, and when they did the testing, only one was normal.
One.
Yeah. And so we were like, okay, do we want to freeze it or do we want to do a fresh transfer? And he said, if it were me, I would freeze it and I would take Christmas off. He goes, let's lower your stress, enjoy your holidays, and at the beginning of the year, we'll come back and we'll do the frozen transfer. And I was like, okay, I think that's a good idea. So we let it go. And a lot of my clients have a hard time with that, letting it go. Like they can't just go about their business. But I identified many things over the course of that last treatment to get some emotional resiliency. And I just gave it to God and I was like, I'm going to let it go. And so we went back in January, like the second or third week, and scheduled our transfer. We did the transfer on February 15th of 2019 and got pregnant and gave birth to our daughter in October.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
so you had a COVID baby too. Like you.
Well, yes and no. So she was born in October, but I put her back in, like I stayed home for 16 weeks and then I went back for like 6 weeks to work and then COVID hit. And so she was only in daycare for like 6 weeks and then I pulled her out. And so it happened when she was like 5 months old, like almost 5 months old. So that whole first year we did get to spend with her and our other two. That was crazy times. All of us trying to navigate staying home and being online. And yeah, it was good. Good times.
Good times. Yeah. But like, so there's so much to unpack there. There's so much, like, and you touched on some of those things, like going through this process and understanding that, like, yeah, okay, I can get pregnant, but like for some reason I can't stay pregnant. And it took you until like the genetic testing portion of this whole procedure to understand why that was.
Yep.
When you were going through that and you said like it took a toll on your mental health, like what kind of things were you thinking? Like how did that play out on how you saw yourself as a person, as a partner, how did that affect that?
Yeah, I think what I've learned being in this space now and being a coach and a mentor is that a lot of women feel ashamed that their body can't do what comes so naturally to a lot of other women. And so you blame yourself. You're kind of like, what's wrong with me? What did I do? And so you run down the gamut of, I did too much partying when I was younger, or maybe they had an abortion and now it's like, well, now you can't get pregnant because you had an abortion, or you just are too busy and you waited too long. Like that kind of ran through my mind, that I was, just too busy working and career goals. And so now I passed my prime. So you kind of run down all these lists because you want a reason. You want a reason. And when you get that unexplained infertility diagnosis, which is a lazy diagnosis, basically, in my opinion, it's not a reason. Like whenever something's wrong in any facet of life, you want a reason so that you can course correct. And so for a long time, I didn't have a reason and I was really ashamed. It was really difficult because because of that shame, I didn't feel like I could talk to anybody about it. A lot of women, and I didn't have this when I was going through my journey, a lot of women want to talk about it and they want the emotional support. And I think it's because they want to know if the reason is the same for them. And I didn't even think about that when I was going through mine, that there may be other women that are going exactly through what I'm going through. And the reasoning is the same. They're older, they've had a reproductive issue, they continue to have multiple miscarriages. But I was so ashamed that I only told 5 people. And those 5 people were my rock. And that was it. I didn't post about it on social media. I didn't tell my neighbors. I kept it close to the vest. But that was me. That was my choice. I think looking back in hindsight, I would have done better with stronger emotional support. But I still think I would not have wanted to be posting about it on social media or joining a group. And so that's why I still offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching, and that goes along to kind of my pillar of my coaching, is that everybody and every body is different. We all need different things to feel safe and secure and to process, and guidance and nutrition, and like everything is different, and it's based on so many different variables. And so I think that was like the biggest thing that I learned about when I was in my journey, that I needed to figure out how I was personally going to get through it, because I didn't have the support system that I offer now to my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said, I'm thankful that you did at least have a core group of people that you felt safe speaking to about it. But that was something that I was going to bring up, is that especially in the fertility world, I mean, everything associated with bringing a child into the world is very taboo unless you speak about it in terms of rainbows and sunshine. And very often it's not that way at all. And I was very appreciative that you mentioned your partner's experience of this whole thing and the grief of losing what you expected, or losing that picture of what you thought was going to come, because we do, rightfully so, focus a lot of our energy and attention on mom in these loss situations. And dads and partners are also grieving the loss of their child, or the loss of what they thought was going to result from this whole thing. How did you and your partner navigate those moments of grief?
We are very faith-filled, and I know that that's not, for everybody. So when I try to push my content, I speak of like higher power, and God, so that I'm not singling anybody out. But we are very faith-filled, and so I think that was a big piece of it, was like prayer, and then like the small support system that we did have. Like, he has a best friend that he was leaned on quite a bit, who coincidentally had gone through IVF. Him and his wife had gone through challenges like previously, and so that he knew exactly what my husband was feeling like. And we have excellent communication, so we were able to talk about how we felt, and why it was disappointing. And he didn't feel uncomfortable, like actually crying when we saw our baby not have heartbeat.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I
And
think it was definitely faith.
Yeah, and that's important to share. And I say this to every guest on my podcast, like, your story and your journey is yours. Like, there's don't feel like, even if it's something that isn't like widely accepted, this is your story, this is your time. And I love that you found such strength in that, because it's unimaginable. I will be the first one to tell my guests I've never experienced a pregnancy loss, so I will never say I understand, or like, that must have been so pain. I can't understand that pain, but what I can understand is trauma, and I can understand grief. And to have a coping skill that worked for you and your partner is huge. It's huge because that's a horrible thing to navigate alone.
Yeah, I think communication was really good. And then I also think I'm a big fan of journaling because I feel like, and even if it's not in what you would consider like a typical journal, like paragraph form, but even if it's just like a brain dump, like I feel like a failure, or I'm so depressed, I don't want to get out of bed, or, whatever it is, just getting those thoughts to paper. That was like a really good coping mechanism for me as well.
I'm gonna harken back to season 2, and if you haven't already, you should definitely. One of our guests in season 2, her name was Allie, and she designed journals for moms that are specific for that, for like when you just
I
have
love
5
that.
minutes, right? When you
Yeah.
just have 5 minutes. And she has a family journal and she has a gratitude journal, and
I'm definitely going to check that out.
yes, please do. Allie's magnificent. And again, like I love being able to create these connections. Like we are a quiet connection. But to hear you say that, I'm like, oh, I immediately think of Allie because that's exactly why she designed it. She's like, I'm busy. Things are crazy. And just to be able to have a brain dump.
Yep.
So check her out. I'll send you her info.
Yeah, definitely.
But this is your time. So when you finally got the one egg that would become the embryo that would become your daughter, you said your daughter? Yes. How was that pregnancy? Were you able to enjoy that pregnancy, or did it come with a lot of anxiety?
So I was able to enjoy it. It was a seamless pregnancy. I had a little bit of anxiety in the beginning, like I mentioned, because of getting to that point, to that marker of where, am I going to make it to 10 weeks? And so those few weeks leading up to that I was very anxious and very unsure. But at the same time, I felt like this is it and this clicked. I can't explain it other than I just knew because it was a normal egg. Because I could get pregnant and because I had done all the work that I now teach women how to do, I was confident that it was going to stick. There was always this little voice in my head until I got past to like the 12th week mark, I'd say. And then after that, I wasn't nervous at all. I felt great. I didn't get sick. I was enjoying myself. I did acupuncture all the way up through it because I had started that like about a year and a half previously to me getting pregnant, doing the IVF. And I had developed some other strategies besides journaling. And so in my heart, I knew it was going to be golden. It was a little scary being told that you are a geriatric pregnancy.
Yeah, I hate that term.
And you're going to have to go through some additional testing. So, like, we had to do the anatomy scan, and I live in Virginia, in Charlottesville. So, I had to go to the University of Virginia and get her heart monitored to make sure that there wasn't any defects. Because when you go through IVF, any IVF, doesn't matter your age, there's like a 2 to 3% chance that there's going to be a heart abnormality. And then with my age, it was just exacerbated. And so that was scary, but it was more because of the unknown. It wasn't that I thought something was going to be wrong. So it was a great pregnancy. I loved it. And I was like, felt fine. And I was, you would never know that I was 44. Like people would tell me all the time, I'm like, gosh, you do not look 44. So yeah, it was a great pregnancy. I wish I could have more, but now I'm just too old.
Gosh. Yeah, that goes right along with the whole geriatric pregnancy thing though. Like I hate the like limits that are put on us, but I understand and I feel you for sure. let's talk about when your daughter was born. What were those first moments like?
Oh, they were amazing. I had to have a C-section, obviously, because I had mentioned I had the fibroids and they didn't want my scar tissue to rupture. But I got to admit, I was kind of glad because I didn't want to have to push.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like over all the pain that I've had to go through with my poor uterus. So I was like thankful that she was just going to be taken out, but she did make a grand entrance. I had a scheduled C-section and it did not stay scheduled in the way that it was supposed to go down. So the Friday before, I went for pre-op, check her heart, check her oxygen levels, and my water broke.
Oh,
On the table while we were listening. And I was like, I told my husband, I did not go pee, and there's warm liquid on my leg. So, yeah. And he's like, okay, let me get the doctor. So she was like, okay. She came in and she goes, heart rate still sounds good. Oxygen still looks good, but I think I know what happened. So stand up slowly and gush. And she's like, okay, we're going across the street because she's making an entrance. And because I did know that it was a girl. We did know because at my 30-week scan for the heart, I said that I wanted to know. And so we knew that it was a girl. So anyway, I wheel across the street and I could already start feeling the contractions. And I was like, oh no. I was only like a centimeter and I was already complaining. But she was out in like 2 hours. And so it was great. I had a group of doctors that I felt really comfortable with through the whole leading up to the whole thing. So they rotate so you're comfortable. If you don't have like the one doctor that you don't freak out. So I knew who was on call and she was fantastic and everything went fine and she was perfect. And once they got her all cleaned up, they gave her back to me because I really wanted that skin on skin contact. And it was awesome. She was perfect. She was like about 2.5 weeks early, but she was still over the weight and she was fine. Like we left, a couple days later and she was perfectly fine. Everything had developed, her lungs and her heart and everything looked good. So yeah, it's good.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it does not detract from the experience that you went through to get to where you got to, but I'm so thankful that you were able to have those moments with her and that, you even got to experience, it sounds like golden hour. A lot of C-section mamas don't get to experience that. So that's amazing.
Yeah, the only difficulty I had was latching. I wasn't really producing enough yet. And so we had a lactation consultant come in and she gave me like a shield, a nipple shield. And then she took to that right away. It was just easy for her to get. And I pretty much stayed using that even, I did it. I breastfed for about 13 weeks, but I just wasn't producing enough. I should have started pumping before she got here, like hindsight 2020. But I did give her that, at least a little bit for a few weeks, and that went well. So I was happy for that. But that was probably the only difficulty, like right out of labor and in the hospital. I was like kind of bummed about that, but I got through it. You kind of feel like, why can't I do this? Because every mommy does this, right? But that's not the case. Not every mommy can,
No, and there's so many reasons for that too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons for that. And we've talked about a lot of those reasons on the podcast before. Some people just don't produce, or they don't produce in the time that they need to.
Yep.
And then there's this whole phenomenon of dysphoric milk ejection where you get severely depressed when you breastfeed. So it really goes along with the theme of like you were talking about, my body is supposed to be able to do this. Why isn't it doing this? It's like, well, you know what? Your body is your body.
Exactly.
Yeah. And your body is going to do what it can do. and
Yep.
and we need to stop comparing ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to others, which is what you're doing with the work that you do to help women with their fertility journeys now. Is
Mm-hmm.
I think what strikes me so much about it and what I love is it's such a similar ideology to, this is going to seem it's going to seem like a reach, but it's not. I promise. So I worked in intensive special needs education for 10 years. And my philosophy was about my students and all students is like, no two children learn the same. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if you have a disability or if you are
Mm-hmm.
neurotypical or whatever it is. No two kids learn the same. So why are
Mm-hmm.
we teaching all of our kids the same?
Exactly.
And it's the same kind of thing. No two bodies are the same. And so why are we treating them all the same? And why are we
Correct.
medicating them all the same? So yes. So I vibe very much with
Mm-hmm.
your philosophy. You emphasize a lot, and you did an amazing job of doing this for yourself, but being your own best advocate,
Mm-hmm.
and advocating for yourself through all of this. What are
Mm-hmm.
some ways that you find help you advocate for yourself, and how do you help your clients advocate for themselves?
So I think the biggest thing that I've noticed when I was going through my own journey, and then now even more so in my niche when I find people who follow me or I go and look at other people's stories, you just assume that because they have a medical license that they know what they're doing and that they have all the answers. And I do not want to undercut conventional medicine at all because I personally had phenomenal doctors. They're like one of the top 10 in the country. The doctor who just retired was like one of the first people in the United States in 1978 to actually successfully complete an IVF. So I
Wow.
love them. They're amazing. They have people from all over the country come to their clinic. But what they can't do, most clinics can't, is they don't have the resources and they don't have the time to walk you through your entire journey of what you need. Fertility clinics and like endocrinologists, they focus on like getting you pregnant, but they don't focus on what's keeping you from getting you pregnant or what's blocking you from getting you pregnant. And there's so many variables, just like you were saying about, issues of why a child can't learn something or one way that another child does. It's the same thing with our bodies. I have the philosophy that everybody is very bio individual. So, what that means is like not only from a biological standpoint, but from a lifestyle standpoint, from a dietary standpoint, from a stress management standpoint, we all need different things, and how we respond to them and what we're willing to implement on this journey is different. And so you can't walk into a clinic and be told, okay, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and this before we get up to the IVF process, if you can even afford it. So there's like all these different things that I think should be coupled with conventional medicine. I'm not saying not to do it, but I just think that if you can't afford it, it shouldn't be your first instinct to go run to them just because they're a doctor and they have a license, where you can be trying other things. Like my doctor was, he didn't push it, probably because he is a conventional medicine doctor, but he did kind of slide things under the table with me to look at other options. And so that's how I discovered acupuncture. That's how I discovered, other Ayurvedic practices and oils and a different diet approach, because I showed him what I was eating, but he didn't have time to devise like a specific plan for me because he didn't do testing on like what my levels were for, trace minerals. They just don't have the time. They are focused on one thing and one thing only, and that is getting you pregnant. They don't know what's going on with your job. They don't know, what your living situation is. Like they just don't have the time. So that's where I come in and I supplement that. And I tell clients, I can work in collaboration with your doctor and you can share with me your testing, their treatment protocol, all of that, or you can keep us separate. However you want to handle it, I'm totally fine with either. And it's a personal choice. So, but they work well when you have somebody that you can call day and night, because that was the other thing. They'd tell me to do something and then I'd be like, well, I have a question and it's 10 o'clock at night. So who am I going to ask? Because the nurse isn't going to respond unless it was like about medicine. They had an on-call doctor, but they didn't want you calling for like a silly question. Whereas my clients have 24-hour access to me. They can text me, call me, message me, and I'll get back to them. So it's that kind of thing that conventional medicine isn't going to get you.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate how you acknowledge the marriage between the two sort of modalities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a personal opinion, and I try not to give those, but I think that there is such a lack of open-mindedness in the medical field into integrating not just like pharmaceuticals or drug treatment plans. Like I think that preventative maintenance and holistic health, as well as Western medicine, really need to work together a little bit more. We'll see a healthier population, but that's a rabbit hole that I've been down, and we won't go down that today. So it's very much on brand for you. You go through these big life shifts, and to you it's like, okay, I'm starting from scratch all over again. But to me, listening to your story back, it's like, it sounds like you were always on this path, just in a very roundabout way. Like you had always been interested in nutrition, and you had always been interested in health and fitness, and yeah, you worked in sales for a long time, and that's cool. And we all have memories of those jobs. And then you worked for IT security, and that seemed very, very different. But then you just sort of unified all of your life experiences, and now you're doing something that you're so passionate about. And not only is it fulfilling to you, but it is helping so many other people to feel safe and feel fulfilled in their fertility journeys. So I think that's beautiful, and I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, I really do, and I've loved hearing you talk about it, because you talk about it with such passion, and I can tell how important your clients are to you.
Thank you.
But
My husband, no, I was just going to say, my husband, that's kind of how it came to fruition. Me actually pursuing this and getting the training I needed to jumpstart this whole journey. He said, when you talk about nutrition and reproductive issues and our fertility journey, you light up. You need to figure out how to monetize that, because you want to be of service to people. You don't want to be figuring out where somebody's email came from that caused, malware.
Yeah. Yes. I feel that. That's also amazing that you had like such support from your husband, and that he could recognize that in you. My husband is the same way, and it does make all the difference in the world. I've loved hearing you speak about this, because even though your journey did not go maybe the way you expected it to, and like you said, you were kind of on the fence. I could have kids, I could not have kids, but going through the journey was not easy. You are here today. You are on the other side, and there is joy. There is joy, and there is passion, and that's just a testament to your resiliency, but also just your badassery as a mom. So, so I always wrap up my episodes with one of two questions, and I think I have mine picked out for you. I don't pick them out ahead of time. I kind of wait, but I think so for our listeners, if you could pick one message from your story and your journey, one thing, one little kernel that they could take with them. Maybe it's somebody who's going through fertility struggles right now, or maybe it's someone who knows someone who's going through fertility struggles right now. What do you hope they take away from what you've shared with us here today?
I think I think the biggest thing is to find a support system. I think so many people think that has to look like or fit in a certain container. And like we discussed, everybody's journey is different. And so you need to find what's going to work best for you, whether you keep it close to the vest like I did, or whether you find a tribe and a group that you can bounce things off of and ask questions and that sort of thing. And then additionally, and probably the most important thing, is to not give up and accept your diagnosis as definitive, because I personally believe that it's not. I personally believe that unless you have some sort of, medical, like true issue, where you cannot, for whatever reason, whether you've had, surgery or, some genetic predisposition, for the most part, we can get pregnant. We just have to figure out what's blocking it. And so I just tell people not to give up and look and seek out what your body needs and what you need to promote your health in all facets of life to support conception.
That's beautiful. That's an awesome like summary of everything. You summed it up so nicely. In a neat little package. I often forget to ask this, but this will all be linked in your show notes. But if my listeners would like to learn more about you, where are the best places to find you?
Sure. So probably the easiest, because we met through Instagram and everybody's in this Instagram space, is my feed. So it's Harvest Health with Heather is my handle. And then same thing with my website. So harvesthealthwithheather.com is the easiest. And I have a great freebie if any of your listeners want to get started on how they can immediately impact their egg health and boost it within 90 days. They can get that freebie online.
Yep. Definitely check out Instagram and Threads. And Heather is one of those amazing accounts that if you interact, she will interact back with you. It's not a bot. It's not some AI. You're actually going to hear from Heather.
Yeah.
So, Heather, thank you. I'm so glad we were able to connect, and I'm so thankful for you for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad we were finally able to connect too with all of our crazy momhood lives. And I was like really looking forward to today. So thank you so much for sharing this safe space with me.
Thank you so much, Heather. Your journey is a powerful reminder that no two fertility or motherhood experiences are the same, and that emotional and physical support are essential in navigating any challenges along the way. If this conversation resonated with you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need it. You can keep up with us on Quiet Connection by following us on Facebook, Instagram, Red Note, YouTube, and Threads at Quiet Connection Podcast. You can also find us on Blue Sky at Quiet Connection Pod. You can help our community grow by leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and consider sharing our episodes on social media. Be sure to check out our Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee accounts to support our mission and get exclusive access to bonus episodes and other goodies. To share your personal journey, you can contact us through our website at quietconnectionpodcast.com or by email at quietconnectionppmh@gmail.com. Join us next time when another story is told and you realize you are not alone. I see you. Motherhood's messiest moments, we're airing them out.
Odd Moms on Call is the podcast where a no BS mom squad tackles parenting, politics, and everything in between.
It's like venting to your besties, but with mics.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Buzzsprout and grab a seat at the table.